welcome back to the summit. So with us, Mr. Steve Milloy, Mr. Aaron Pereira, and joining us, Dr. Michael Adel, member of scientific staff at the Israel Home Guardians. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for staying and joining us. So we're staying on topic, of course, but before we get back to our conversation, year in, year out, declarations and summits and announcements. Is anything really changing? Let's take a listen to what the president of COP26, Alok Sharma, had to say at last year's COP27. Let's take a listen.
There was a strong push from some countries, and the message that I've delivered to them, both in private but also here, is that they need to look particularly the climate vulnerables in the eye. And you heard that from the climate vulnerable countries. They acknowledged the fact that we had made historic progress on a loss and damage fund, but they were incredibly disappointed as well that we hadn't managed to make more progress on mitigation.
Okay, gentlemen, let's get to it. Another quick fire, around 30 seconds each, and we'll pick it up from there. Are global climate initiatives and summits effective at all? Mr. Steve Milloy, please take the lead. Your 30 seconds are on.
Yeah, no, they're not, because emissions don't cause warming. We've had 9 years, no warming, 500 billion tons of emissions. It's not true. There's no extreme weather event that correlates with emissions or warming. What's driving recent warming is El Nino. We have an El Nino coming up. That's going to push some more warming. But it's got nothing to do with emissions, so there's nothing anybody's going to be able to do. That's why no climate initiative is going to work. 35 years into what I call climate idiocy, we're burning more fossil fuels than ever.
Okay, Dr. Michael Adel, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to chime in, first of all, by stating that Mr. Milloy belongs to one of the tiniest minorities among scientists on this planet. The vast majority of scientists have solid evidence and stand behind the fact that the climate is indeed changing, and the change is in fact accelerating, and we're only at the very bottom of the curve of change, and much worse things are in store. That is the general consensus among scientists. It's always possible to find a naysayer like Mr. Milloy who'll get on side in order to make some noise.
Okay, Mr. Aaron Pereira, conclude this quick fire round for us.
Yeah, I fully agree with what was said before. Like, we're talking about science here, we're not talking about fairy tales. Climate change denial is a fairy tale. So to answer the actual question, I think initiatives like the IPCC have been great in terms of international cooperation, because the climate crisis is a global problem. However, there has been too little done, of course, and there have been year after year of reports which say, we're heading towards real catastrophe and no action.
Yes, and from this point onward, gentlemen, now let's please feel free to interact. Dr. Adel, I do want to begin with you. Is climate change becoming a political sticking point, or let me rephrase, can it become apolitical?
It cannot become apolitical per se. It has to be political, because it's only when political leaders take strong stances that real change will occur. I fully stand behind what the protesters are doing. I believe that as climate change becomes more extreme, the things that protesters are willing to do will also become more extreme. And, just because one lives in an apartment block in New York City or something and is in air conditioning all day and is not exposed to the real effects of climate change, that doesn't really mean that you don't have a responsibility to act. And in fact, I stand behind the way these protests are behaving, and these protesters are behaving.
Yeah, Mr. Milloy, it will not be a first, nor will it be the last. Is this crackdown on protest merely a diversion method on behalf of governments, of authorities trying to disguise their lack of climate policy?
Well, no, we've tried everything on climate. We've tried subsidizing windmills and solar panels. It doesn't matter. The whole climate thing is a hoax. Is there a political? The whole thing is it's got a political agenda behind it. It's all about politics. It's all about controlling our standard of living. It's all about reducing our. It's about.
I don't think you can really broadcast this kind of stuff.
Yes,
like, this is absolute nonsense.
Mr. Pereira, please, yes.
This is really nonsense. Like, why are you broadcasting this?
Yeah.
Shut up, my word. The environmentalists want to kill 75% of the population, down to 2 billion.
Okay. We will go back to our original topic for this conversation. Again, not the cause, but the means. That's a different discussion that we are willing to engage in here. Dr. Adel, should or could civil uprising be civil?
Well, first of all, I think that the position that the current protesters are taking is quite reasonable. They're attempting not to break the law. They're only performing acts which have a minimal impact really on society. If we compare that to the impact of what climate change is currently doing in countries that are really already exposed to climate change, such as those in the Middle East, such as those in South Asia, and you look at the impact on populations there, it's absolutely incomparable to the minor impact that these protesters are having on day-to-day life in Western countries.
Yeah, Mr. Pereira, are we witnessing a targeted, orchestrated campaign against Extinction Rebellion? What are we seeing here exactly?
Well, I mean, I think that's a bit of a loaded question. What we're seeing actually is we are challenging the establishment, and we see, an establishment that is not so happy with that pushing back. Yeah. And as I said before, we're a democratic movement. We believe that through democratic means, we can go against the climate crisis. We can reduce the damage. So it's really important that we protect and safeguard the right to protest. And at the moment, what we're seeing is this is not happening. Yeah. There's a backlash.
But do you understand the concern, perhaps, that we're heading towards a radicalizing loop to an extent? The harsher the backlash, the harsher the counterattack, et cetera, meaning that at the end of the day, we will only see a harsher crackdown on behalf of authorities?
Well, what we've seen is that this works, actually, what we're doing. So we've been, for example, our last protest campaign, we've been coming back to the same spot outside the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate, and, doing this, essentially sitting on the street. And the first time or the second time we did it, it was only a few of us, and, there was very critical response in the media, etc. But one, we stay peaceful and non-violent, and we repeat the message. And now it's being talked about in the media. It's been talked about in politics. In fact, the question of fossil subsidies for the use of fossil fuels, has been. It used to be a topic a long time ago. In 2013, it was promised that the government would get rid of these subsidies, also in 2018, and it hasn't. So by doing these kind of protests, we're putting a spotlight on this, holding them accountable, and people are annoyed. Many people are, but it gets the topic talked about.
So if I could add a remark on the topic of the subsidies. The country that I live in is very much, the energy economy here is based on fossil fuels, based on gas that's was discovered over the last 15 or 20 years. Nonetheless, all the government has to do is basically to get out of the way. They've got to stop putting up barriers to the introduction of the alternatives, of the renewable alternatives. We have a massive opportunity to move forward with solar, but the problem is that there are many ways in which the bureaucracy in this country is moving much too slowly. So as far as the subsidies are concerned, that's an active barrier to the transition to clean energy. And so this is catastrophic in terms of driving the agenda of removing the barriers to climate change.
Yeah, what appears to be recurring.
We have 30 billion in subsidies every year from the Dutch government, and this essentially stifles innovation in renewable technologies. What you said.
What seems to be recurring a method, if you will, is not to talk about substance, but rather methods, and by that, again, divert the spotlight, if you will. Steve Malloy, Dr. Michael Adel, Aaron Pereira, thank you very much for this. Some topics we can discuss the means, but not the cause. Perhaps this is one of them.